I definitely have a traditional blood, and began playing the fiddle. We had an old fiddle in the house which my mum wanted to put to use, and I did have some lessons classically. You know, this is what you do with your left and right hand. But very quickly, I started attending traditional music sessions in Ireland, both in after schools and in pubs at the weekend with my parents, and going around the country playing. And I spent a long time going through different competitions in Ireland, playing in the Feshkiol and all of that. And then I started playing more seriously as a classical violinist when I was probably about 11 or 12. But I already had a real great oral tradition in me, and was playing a lot of traditional music as well. When I was 9 or 10, I was sitting next to a fiddler called Joe Dowd, who was about 75 at that time, who had such a tradition of fiddle players back to about 1850 in him, you know, that he'd learned from. So yeah, it's very important. I still, you know, I love listening to Irish music, and I've got countless CDs at home, and I've got it always on in the car or on in the plane when I'm on tour. Funny, right now, I love minimalism, repetitive music, system music, and American music in general. But I do remember in about 1993 throwing out one or two of my Philip Glass CDs, and it's funny, right now I'm in such a different place to that. I've kind of come full circle again and grown up, I suppose, and really enjoy this music. I joined a group called Icebreaker in the late 90s and played a lot of kind of post-minimalist music by Michael Gordon, Julia Wolfe, and David Lang of Banging a Can. And then more recently, with the Smith Quartet, we play a lot of minimalist repertoire, particularly people like Louis Andriessen and Gavin Bryars, Steve Martland, Graham Fitkin. And it's very, very important to us. And of course, we've recently recorded Philip Glass's Complete String Quartets, which is the first ever release of this nature. So it's been wonderful to meet Philip, and also the quartets work closely with Steve Reich, and been filmed doing the BBC Holocaust film from Auschwitz with him. So we've had a real close connection, and as well with John Adams and Terry Riley. So real great living history of these composers, working with them. For me anyway, the quartets are the most intimate music making of Philip Glass. It's kind of his most personal music, and breadth of style as well. Certainly the first quartet is just after he studied with Nadia Boulanger in Paris, and it has repetitive strands to it, but it's not like a minimalist piece or the kind of da-da-da-da music that you might hear in some of Philip Glass's film scores. Right through to the second quartet, Samuel Beckett's Company it's based on, is very famous. Then the third quartet, Mishima, is from the film Mishima, Japanese film, and the fourth quartet is dedicated to a friend of Philip Glass's who died in New York of AIDS. And then the fifth quartet is probably his most substantial quartet by far, but it's really embracing the tradition of Bartók and Shostakovich, and so these are really unusually varied pieces for just for a string quartet. You wouldn't imagine they're all just by the same composer nearly, and yeah, there's a real breadth of style in them. It's interesting you mentioned Donogh at kind of forefront of all of this, because it's very much the case. He's a very good friend of mine. That's why I know him first of all. He's written a wonderful violin concerto which I recorded called Elastic Harmonic, which is a real kind of post-minimalist fiddle concerto with attitude. And he's also written a piano trio for my trio, for the Fidelia trio, called Bulb, which is the title of one of our NMC discs. And Donogh lives in Dublin. He's the head of composition at Trinity College in Dublin, Trinity College, and also he runs a group called the Crash Ensemble, which is playing at the Week here. He set this up, I think, about 12 or 13 years ago, and he's been really instrumental in kind of reawakening an interest in newer types of Irish music. Certainly with young people, there's new audiences going to these concerts. He's been very involved in festivals like when RTE brought Steve Reich for their Living Music Festival. Donogh was the artistic director, and it was a really successful festival. So he's been really instrumental in encouraging young composers to open up what kind of music they might like to write, or maybe with a lot of stuff with multimedia and electronics. Certainly there is a link, for sure, to people like the Banging a Can School in New York, and also to more composers from Canada like James Tenney, who they had recently in Dublin. So he's an eclectic figure in Ireland, and I suppose he's a little bit of an Irish Tom Addis. I would say. He's a bit, but very different style musically. But he's he really, I love his music. It's really interesting. One of the things I wanted to point out in this week was the embracing nature between traditional and contemporary and Irish traditional music and minimalism, etc. altogether. So we have, first of all, a piece by Darragh called Gra agus Bás, which is with the Irish sean singer Iarla O'Leonard, very famous for his connection with the Afro-Celt sound system for real world records. And this is a piece where sean singer Iarla doesn't read music, has had to learn a long piece which is with big contemporary ensemble and electronics, and had to learn the whole part from memory. And learned orally, and then so that sounds like you have a old worldy singer and singing on top of this very new sound world of, you know, a live contemporary music group. So he's embracing that, and then at the same time another Irish composer called Roger Doyle, who's one of the forefathers of electronic music in Ireland. He's written a piece for uilleann pipes, which you may know a lot from film scores, from Braveheart or something, but in a very different nature here. So for uilleann pipes and electroacoustic tape. So there's lots of different worlds kind of colliding or embracing. I think probably the Morton Feldman concert with John Tilbury and the Smith Quartet will be one of the highlights for me, because John has such a close connection with Morton Feldman's music, and we've just released the first of 3 DVDs of this nature, and he's a pianist and a wonderful musician to work with. And yeah, we recorded all of these pieces live at Huddersfield in 2006, so it's really important to us now to kind of expose them to public, and they really get such few outings, and they're such transcendental kind of works that, yeah, they should attract a very particular, interesting audience.